The Washington Capitals have defeated the Columbus Blue Jackets in the 2018 Stanley Cup Playoffs. In this video, we're going to recap and analyze the series, and that's coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and analyze all 31 NHL teams. So if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. The Washington Capitals have defeated the Columbus Blue Jackets in the series 4-2, and they are now moving on to round 2, where they'll face yet again the Pittsburgh Penguins while the Columbus Blue Jackets wrap up their season and head to the golf course. So obviously this series started off mainly looking like Columbus just might steal one here from Washington. They got a lot of success early, and then Washington took over and basically ended it in 6 games. So let's take a look at it here game by game as to how this series has progressed and how each team fared in these games, and kind of analyze what happened and how things really changed after the first couple games. From game 3 on, the Capitals won 4 straight games to win this series, so the tides really turned in game 3. So let's break this down game by game. Now in game 1, we saw a Columbus 4-3 victory in overtime, very tightly, closely matched game. The shots were 30-27 in favor of Washington. Columbus was 2 for 4 on their power play, and the Capitals were 2 for 6. So obviously Columbus was a little bit more in the penalty box, gave the Capitals a few more opportunities, but they both ended up cashing in twice on the power play. Goes to overtime. Blue Jackets win, take game 1 of the series. Artemi Panarin had a very nice goal to score the overtime winner and put the Jackets up 1-0. So an excellent start for the Blue Jackets in this game. Now another thing to note, in case you missed it as well, is that the Capitals decided to go with Philip Grubauer in game 1. Obviously, Braden Holtby didn't have a fantastic season, especially down the stretch. Was really looking fatigued, and Grubauer ended up playing a fair bit more than we expected and did fairly well. So they started him in game 1. He didn't do too badly, but they did end up getting the loss and went down 1-0 here. So they did come back with Grubauer in game 2, which also was in Washington. We had another overtime, very closely, tightly contested game, a 5-4 Columbus Blue Jacket victory to go up 2-0. That one was the Matt Calvert overtime winner. Very, very close. Now the shots, though, were not close at all. We had quite the shots on goal differential here, 58-30 in favor of Washington. Columbus was 2 for 4 in the power play, where the Capitals were 3 for 7. So there was all kinds of goals. Both teams were really doing a very good job on their power play. Neither team's PK were really getting the job done. So all kinds of special teams action going to work there. And the Jackets pulled off yet another one. So obviously this is a case of... now another thing to note, make note here, is that late in game 2, after the Columbus scored their 4th goal, we had a change in goaltender, and Braden Holtby came in to finish that game. So obviously they did get the overtime winner past Holtby, but Holtby would then start the remaining 4 games that the Capitals were able to win. So to me, even though the Capitals didn't get that game when Holtby came in, that's like the turning point of the series, is Braden Holtby taking over here. And let's go through the numbers to show just how much of an impact that actually had on the Capitals. Game 3. Now we go to Columbus for game 3. This is another tightly, very closely contested game. The 3-2 victory for Washington in double overtime. So 3 consecutive games in overtime, really closely scored. 45-35 shots on goal in favor of Washington yet again. Columbus goes 0 for 4 on their power play, and the Capitals go 1 for 4. So not a drastic difference, but that 1 goal was the difference in the game. 1 goal game here in double overtime. So if the Capitals wouldn't have taken advantage of special teams, they may not have won that game. They got a big performance out of Braden Holtby. Made some big saves when it mattered most. They're back in the series. Makes it 2-1 instead of 3-0. If that overtime would have went a different way, then would have been sayonara Washington. But instead, they have life. Game 4. The Capitals pull off a 4-1 victory. Braden Holtby had an excellent game, only led 1 goal. Shots on goal were 33-24 in favor of Washington. Again, the Columbus Blue Jackets go 0 for 3 on the power play, while Washington goes 1 for 3. So even though the Capitals are not, they're not lights out here in the power play, but they're getting 1 here and there. They're getting at least 1 per game, whereas that's twice in a row now we've seen Columbus get dried up on the power play, and that's having a big impact. And it's also part of that too is Holtby's playing well in the goal, and that certainly had an impact as well. Now Game 5, we go back to Washington. We have another overtime game. Washington pulls off a 4-3 overtime victory. Nicholas Backstrom scores the overtime winner. The shots on goal in this one actually were tilted the other way, 42-29 in favor of Columbus. The Jackets, however, go 0 for 5 on the power play, and the Capitals go 1 for 4. So the Capitals still getting production out of their power play and special teams. Braden Holtby has a pretty decent game, makes some saves when it matters most. Capitals win in overtime. So still, again, very close game. At this point in the series, we're after Game 5. 4 to 5 games go to overtime. Very tightly, closely matched teams here. Obviously, one game was a 4-1 victory. But heading into Game 6, couldn't help but wonder, are the Capitals going to close it out? Or are the Blue Jackets going to force a Game 7? If you look back at the history here of the Capitals during the Ovechkin era, and any time they've had Game 6s where they've been up 3-2, they've lost way more than they've won, and end up going to a lot of Game 7. So it's a little bit surprising, so I wasn't sure what would happen. But the Capitals pull it out in Game 6. They come back with a big 6-3 victory. Shots on goal were 38-20 in favor of Columbus, so they really put the effort forward. They draw in a power play, 0 for 4 in a power play, where the Capitals are 1 for 3. So the Washington Capitals managed to get a special team advantage pretty well every game. Now the first 2 games they were pretty even, but the final 4 games on special teams, the Capitals had a good power play that was clicking, getting at least 1 per game, and the Jackets had nothing. Braden Holtby comes in, plays the final 4 games. As much as Bobrovsky wasn't terrible, he certainly could have been better, and he was outplayed by Braden Holtby. So Braden Holtby taking over in the net was certainly a turning point for me. And not only that, but special teams were huge. Columbus just couldn't get it done, and I think that speaks a lot to their lack of secondary scoring. Obviously, they had pretty decent series out of some of their top players, but at the same time, we didn't get, Sergei Bobrovsky, like I said, he wasn't terrible, but, you need a goaltender to steal you games in the playoffs, and they didn't really get that. And then at the same time, their top guys, weren't terrible either, but they need more help. They need more secondary scoring. This team is good, but it just wasn't good enough. Their defense wasn't too bad. Seth Jones, Zach Werenski, Ian Cole, they all had some decent playoff performances, but came up short yet again. Now to summarize the series here, obviously the Capitals outscored the Blue Jackets by a score of 24-18, so that's a 6-goal difference over a 6-game series, which is more than enough for obviously for a victory. Take a look at the shots on goal, 223-196 in favor of Washington as well. So obviously you're shooting more, therefore you're going to score more. Now you're shooting more, you probably have the puck more, and you also have more offensive players, so it just goes to show the difference in team. Again, let's look at the power play. For the whole series here, the Columbus Blue Jackets were 4 for 24, whereas the Capitals were 9 for 27. That's a big difference. Big difference. So the Capitals power play came through when it mattered most. They got at least 1 power play goal in all 6 games, and that for me was a big difference. Braden Holtby coming in Game 4. Let's look at his stats over the final 4 games. He ended up with a 2.25 goals against average and a save percentage of .936. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive stats. That's more Braden Holtby-like that they weren't getting consistently throughout the regular season. But maybe he's had enough time to sit and watch, rest, recuperate, that he's back in his game. I mean, if you look at Capitals' past playoff blunders, you could really not blame Holtby. It wasn't his fault. It was usually that the scoring dried up. There's different factors in place here. We thought maybe goaltending might be an issue this time around. It might become a controversy. But at this point in time, there is no goaltending controversy in Washington. Braden Holtby will definitely be your starting goaltender going forward. I mean, is it possible Grubauer gets some more action? It certainly is. But unless Holtby really plays bad here at some point, he's not going to be coming out of the net. He was the main reason, I think, that they won in that first round series against the Blue Jackets. So obviously the Capitals go on to play the Penguins yet again. So stay tuned for our second round playoff previews, which will be coming up here most likely tomorrow. We're going to do one for the Eastern Conference and one for the Western Conference. Obviously, the Western Conference preview will come first because those matchups are completely set. We're going to have the Nashville Predators take on the Winnipeg Jets, and we're going to have the Vegas Golden Knights play the San Jose Sharks. So since those matchups are ready to roll, we'll get that preview out to you most likely tomorrow. The Eastern preview will either come later tomorrow or the next day. Obviously, we have to wait for the Leafs and Bruins to finish their series to see who's going to play the Tampa Bay Lightning. Obviously, in the other series, like I mentioned, we're going to see the Caps against the Penguins. Don't forget as well, we recently passed the 1,000 subscriber mark, so we have a big 1,000 subscriber giveaway going on right now. There's a video that we posted yesterday. All you have to do is go watch the video, follow the instructions on how to enter that contest, and we're also launched a design contest for a new Top Shelf Hockey logo. So if you want to enter that contest, go back and watch that other video. All the details are there. I'll link down to it in the description in case you haven't already had a chance to watch it. If you haven't done so already, consider following us on Twitter. You're going to find our Twitter handle on the screen right here. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We'll catch you next time.